Attention all parents seeking to break the chains of conformity in education. Welcome to Patterdox, where your child's mind is liberated, nurtured, and empowered to thrive in today's complex world. I'm Will Roosh, an educator with nearly 20 years of experience, fiercely compassionate about fostering viewpoint diversity and critical thinking. If you're tired of the cookie cutter approach to education and yearn for a platform that embraces individuality, you're in the right place. Picture this, your child no longer confined to the limitations of traditional education, but instead flourishing in an environment that encourages curiosity, questions the status quo, and celebrates diverse perspectives. With Patterdox, your child will embark on a transformative journey guided by live teaching, Zoom workshops, personalized support, and a curriculum designed to challenge, inspire, and ignite their intellectual curiosity. Say goodbye to the one-size-fits-all approach and hello to the world of limitless possibilities. Join me at Patterdox and let's empower your child to think critically, embrace diversity, and become the architects of their own future. Go to patterdox.com to learn more.
Hello and welcome to the next episode of Cylinder Radio. I'm your host, Will Roosh, high school teacher in Los Angeles. That is, I'm doing a solo podcast today because tomorrow, the day I'm recording this, tomorrow, I'm going to be releasing kind of a soft launch of my educational platform called Patterdox. It's an online educational platform. It's like starting off as curriculum, and then it's going to go into hopefully building an entire school. So I wanted to come on here to people who listen to the podcast to share a little bit about my journey and what's going on here. Essentially, I got into being a classroom teacher in 2007 was my first year. I moved out to Los Angeles. I graduated from Penn State with a degree in secondary ed education. That's all I wanted to do. I did 2 semesters of student teaching, one in the spring of 2005 and then one in the fall of 2005, one in Altoona, Pennsylvania, and then one in Philadelphia. And then I graduated in December 2010. 2005. Graduated in December 2005 and then moved out to Los Angeles in March 2006. So I worked like 2 jobs. I worked at a pizza shop full time and I worked at a factory full time, gathered up as much money as I could, moved out to California, moved to the beach. It was great. Couldn't get a job anywhere. I tried to get in at like Redondo Union. I thought it'd be so cool to teach at like a beach high school and then like get into surfing. It's like, this kid from Pennsylvania, landlocked state. I was like, I'm going to go out. I went out with a buddy of mine that I went to high school with. It was really cool. We drove out across the country in like a convertible. It was like the whole like kind of quintessential idea of moving out to California. We got a great house. It was a 2-bedroom house that was a walk to the beach. It was like maybe 4 blocks to the beach, and it was $1,500 a month. Those days are gone. But it was all kind of working out. But I wanted to get a job teaching down in the beach area. I was like, I'm going to be a beach guy, so I'm going to do that. And I applied everywhere. It's actually, Redondo Beach is actually just west, about 15, 20 minutes from like South Central or Compton. So I was like, I'll teach in Compton. Let's go. Compton High didn't hire me. I wanted to teach. I didn't mind teaching in like an inner city place, like whatever. Like let's go. I'm here for it. I was very like bright-eyed, like let's take on the world. Let's save these kids, all that kind of stuff. Like a lot of young teachers are when they get into education. And I couldn't find a job. I applied to, 25, 30 schools. When I went in and showed my face, like, hey, I want to work here, blah, 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 nothing. So I got a job at a small charter school in Granada Hills, California, which was like 44 miles away from my house. It was far in LA traffic and everything like that. And it was a school, but it was just basically modules. It was just like a trailer park. And they called it a school. And I was like, but the salary was okay. I think I made like $34,000 a year or something for a kid like me. That was like a ton of money. I was like, let's go. It's like my first real job. I worked in a lot of like blue collar jobs and stuff before that, but never a teaching job using my degree. I was there for 5 years, did some great things there, and then moved on to another school in East LA. It was a Bill and Melinda Gates funded school, another charter school. I tried to get into like a normal school, like a big, classic school with 4,000 kids or whatever, and none of them hired me. I went to this charter school, and then I moved to a private Orthodox Jewish school. I'm not Jewish, but I went there because I wanted to be able to teach my way. Long story short, I've had a career now of 17 years in the classroom. And when I met my wife in 2010, I knew that the education system was already, was really broken in a lot of ways. And I'd only been teaching for like 3 years. I was like, but this education system sucks. It's like, that's people say, like, why'd you get into teaching? Like, that's part of why I got into teaching is I hated school, but I knew learning was cool. I knew knowing things was cool. If you look at like the protagonist in any cool movie, like they're capable. Being capable is cool. But then why is the institution that's designed to make you capable and smart so terrible? So I was like, this is a disconnect here. I can do it better than the teachers I had, essentially. Um, so I've always kind of been like, oh, man, education kind of stinks. Just let me just do it my way. And a lot of other schools, you have to teach very specific ways and stuff like that. You have to do it, they don't give you a lot of freedom. And I went to this private school, and they just were kind of just like, go do your thing. They gave me a lot of trust, and I've been very successful there, and it's been really wonderful. Um, it was a fairly long commute from my house, so I had about an hour commute almost. And I was like, all right, on this commute, what am I going to do? It's a long commute. What am I going to do? I'll just listen to podcasts. I started listening to Joe Rogan podcast. And I was like, he's into muscle cars and martial arts and hunting and stuff like that. So am I. So it'll just be a kind of a mindless thing. Cause I used to listen to Howard Stern. I thought it'd be kind of similar. And it's not. And now that, the Joe Rogan experience, this goes back to maybe 2013, something like that. The Joe Rogan experience is not just like mindless, and a bunch of people came on. Nick Christakis, Brett Weinstein, Jordan Peterson. These were college professors who were getting canceled. This is around 2015 for it was like the seeds of like wokeness. And what was happening on these college campuses that was talked about so much was also happening in schools. I saw it happening in schools that I taught at before. I was in the educational world. I went to these conferences and stuff like that. I was like, this is the same thing. Why is no one talking about it in high school? Why is no one talking about it in high school? They're only talking about college. But aren't the seeds planted in like K through 12? And then by the time they go out and they're freshmen on these college campuses, then they're kind of already indoctrinated into this thinking. And no one was talking about it. I couldn't believe it. I was just like, where are I scoured the internet, went on social media because I didn't have social media at the time. I went on social media. I was like, no one's talking about this. This is crazy. So I started bringing it up in my class. I started talking about it in my class, and just getting my students to just question things. Why does this have to be the way? Why does that have to be the way? Like, let's actually critically think here. And I did that through 2015, 2016. And then Trump was elected in 2016. I was the only government teacher at my school. So I had to tackle that firsthand. And, there were teachers who were coming in when Trump was elected and crying in front of the class and just saying like, oh my gosh, our world is falling apart. And I'd have students that were like inconsolable. And I was like, whoa, this is interesting. This is interesting, So I started going more and more into, questioning things, tapping into not just like accepting that, Trump is horrific, but like asking really specifically why and what is he doing that's different, and breaking it down and stuff. And I would come home and tell my wife, like, this is really neat. I'm doing all this cool stuff in the classroom. And she had a salon. She did like eyebrows and stuff like that. And she marketed a lot on social media. And she's like, why don't you talk about it on social media? It's like, I don't want to go on social media. Like, I don't feel comfortable on social media. I still don't. Like holding up my phone and like looking for my phone. I don't even know where it is. But like looking up from my phone, and I was like talking to my phone. I just felt weird. I didn't have a social media that I used regularly or anything like that. I probably had one to keep connect with like friends or something. But I was like, okay, I'll try. So I started in, I think like early 2018, maybe like spring of 2018. So been 6 years. I started an Instagram, and I started this podcast in January of 2019. And I just started talking about like essentially what I was doing in my classroom. It was just an expansion of my classroom. I was like, I have 25 kids in each class, 4 or 5 classes. I think I had 4 classes at the time. So it's 100 kids. If I can get online and get another 20 or 30, great. I want to teach as many kids as possible. Critical thing. I love teaching, and I'm good at it. It's one of the few things that I'm good at. And so it started to, I started to ask questions, and it started to expand. And it was just started off with just like a few of my former students and stuff, but then then like some strangers started watching, and I, did some hashtags and stuff like that. And I started tagging people. And then, over time, my platform grew. And what that did was it sharpened me, because people would give me pushback, and it would like sharpen my ideas. And I was like, oh, if I'm going to put this out on social media, like I better be right. So I get better at doing research and stuff like that. The accountability of social media is something that I talk about in the Social Solution, which is on my website. It's like a free download of how to use social media well, and that's something I developed in real time. So, um, long story long is this developed more and more and more, and it got to the point where uh, I thought the opportunity was right after COVID, especially with kids going online and stuff like that, to make a move to build my own thing. Take some entrepreneurial elements. There's so many things rotten with the school system. There's so many things, from the fact that it's an obedience model, and it punishes curiosity and rewards compliance. And I mean, there's so many. It's like hard to pinpoint one thing that's wrong with it. There's so many things that are going wrong. Um, but uh, but I was like, okay, so I want to do my own thing. I want to bring some entrepreneurship into it. If you go to like a school anywhere in the country, the best teacher in the school, like quantifiably the best, like the best scores, the happiest kids, the most learning being on, whatever it is, the best teacher in the school gets paid the same as the worst teacher in the school. That's a model that just doesn't breed success, clearly. I mean, they might get paid less if they have like less credits, college credits, or they have less time or something like that. And I was like, this just isn't how we get the best. Then you put that up against like what's happening, the trends, quantifiable trends in America for education is like literacy down, math down, competency in all these areas down. Not to mention mental health and all that kind of stuff. Like it's all really not going well. And yet it's so entrenched that something needs to kind of buck the system. And I've developed this audience. And I've kind of been thinking about it, talking to a lot of people, like uh, I heard Naval Ravikant, like the kind of modern day philosopher, is really brilliant, really great when it comes to like innovation and stuff like that. He said something along the lines of the best people in any position should do it for the most people. The best people should do it for the most people. So the best plumber should be cleaning as many pipes as possible. And the worst plumber, the one that screws up the pipes, should not have any customers. Essentially, that's the way it works. And I think that applying that to teaching makes sense. Like I'm gonna like name drop a little bit here, but it's just because I bothered people to the point where they started talking to me. But like over time, I developed just like some friendly relationships with very surface level, but friendly, like several conversations with like Eric Weinstein or Tulsi Gabbard, and both of those individuals encouraged me 2-3 years ago to start my own school. Say what you're doing is important. You recognize the problems. You should start your own school. Start my own school? All right. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to do that. Like, like the brick and mortar thing. I had Matt Boudreau on my podcast a little bit ago, who's really awesome. He teamed up with Tim Kennedy to make the Apogee schools. They have 50 schools in 2024. In 2025, they're going to have 500. It's incredible. I was on the Candace Horback podcast, and she's starting an Apogee school. Like, it's really growing. It's going to be awesome. I was like, what if I just start my own charter school? What about that? And it's like, well, then I have to get into a lot of administration stuff. I have to procure the building. I have to hire an admin team. I have to do all of this kind of stuff. I have to, deal with budgets and funding and all that kind of stuff. And the truth is, I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not. I'm good at being a classroom teacher. I'm good at that. I'm good at sparking thought, and I'm relating complex ideas to young people in simple ways. That's what I'm good at. And a lot of teachers who are great at being classroom teachers, they get out because there's no money in being a good classroom teacher. It's like being a great nurse. What does that even mean? So instead, I've decided to build an online platform. And I figured an online platform would be able to get scale, and I can still teach. I can still teach, but I don't need a building. I don't need, building codes. I don't need fire exits. I don't need, all of this kind of stuff. I don't, it's all just like direct. It's just me and students. And, this is cylinder radio. So it's like, whoa, there we go. He's just listening. I just was dodging my sign. I've racked this over my brain over and over and over again. What are the positives and negatives of building an online school? Because like I didn't like COVID and all I had to do distance learning. It was terrible. I didn't like distance learning. So now I'm building a distance learning thing. It's like, well, yeah, it's not, I might be at like 60% of when I'm really on as like a classroom teacher in the classroom. I'm like 60%, right? But the bar is so low for so many educators out there and so many schools out there and educational platforms and stuff like that, that I think 60% of what I do is going to be far better than 100% of a lot of other people, if they're even giving 100%. Like there's levels to the game. I am terrible at basketball, horrific at basketball, even though I'm tall. Okay. But if whatever, LeBron played at 30% of his ability, he would beat most rec league basketball players. You know what I mean? Like you just took his numbers of how many shots he hits and he just hit 30% of that. He'd still beat a lot of the guys at the YMCA. And I mean, essentially, I see myself as one of those educators that's on a high level. And I think that even if you take away some things that I will lose from like person-to-person interactions, that I still think it'll be far better than a lot of the options out there for like homeschool or supplemental or something along those lines. Like my homeschool program is also not the problem. Why distance learning didn't work for a lot of people is it just took a regular school and just put it online. I am building this with the idea that it's online from the jump. It was designed to be online, which is very different than something that's designed to be in person and then put online. So, it's not just going to be like worksheets and puzzles and things like that. That's what a lot of homeschool curriculum is. I looked at a lot of it. It's not that. Okay, you can get that anywhere. Mine is about relating material to people. And part of what I've been doing on social media is trying to see like, can I be articulate enough over a phone? I know at like a dinner party, I can articulate myself and stuff like that. I can explain my ideas. But can I do it over my phone? I have 6 years of proof of concept that I can explain things in a way that people understand. I've tackled really complicated issues. I've tackled all the issues of race and social class and transgender issues and stuff like that. And a lot of like political issues, trying to make sense of Donald Trump and Joe Biden and what happens in elections and stuff like that. Like I've proven that I can get people to be interested. So, over distance, like a lot of you listen to this podcast, I've never met in person, but you're listening to this. So you see some sort of ability in me to be able to communicate across these tech channels. And so it made me believe that I can do it. And I think that, one of the things that really helped me be successful in the classroom is for the past maybe 5 or 6 years, the first day of school, I pass around a big calendar and every student signs up for a day. And I have lunch. I don't have lunch in the teacher lounge. I have lunch with a different student every day. And I've done this for about 5 years. So it's a lunch meeting with Mr. Roosh Monday through Friday every week throughout the year. Sometimes I get 2. And we just talk about like what's going on. Who are you? It makes me a better teacher because if I know you're into skateboarding, I can relate what's going on in my class to skateboarding. I can talk about like state laws, and I say like, what do you think about a law for having to skateboard wearing a helmet or whatever it is, and then I can relate all this material. Some kids into drumming, and I just happen to see a cool song that has great drums. I can send it to them. Then it's like I can relate material to you better. I get to know you as a person better. You're less likely to be an a-hole to me. You're more likely to buy into what I'm saying because we have some sort of personal connection. And I'm going to build that into Patterdox as well. Patterdox is the name of my platform. It's going to be about personal connection. I'm going to try and do as much of that as I possibly can because I know the value in it. And I think that's what's lost a lot of times over distance learning. But I'm going to try my best to make that connection. I've made real friends online that I've never met in person. I was just talking to Brittany Caldwell. I did a podcast with her. We merged our classes. She was a school teacher in Atlanta over COVID. We merged our class together and talked to her a lot and stuff like that. Just talked about education and talked about like different things. She moved to Africa and stuff. I've never met her in person, but like we're friends. Like there's a lot of people like that I've never met in person, but I've formed relationships with. When I went to London, I met with Africa Brooke and we were just like, boom, right away, just right into conversation because we've formed a relationship. And so I believe it's possible. I've tested this stuff out and I believe it's possible to do that with the students. Patterdox. Why is it called Patterdox? Essentially, dox is a belief. Pattern, it's what patterns are. These repeatable kind of like uh, structures that exist in the world. And I believe that you can study the world by studying the patterns. So if you study one war, that helps you understand kind of all wars, but also all conflicts between people. So Patterdox is going to be a lot of just helping young people to see how learning about something specific can be applied to something broad. So that's going to be like, kind of a lens of the whole thing. I have a really neat logo. Shout out to Katie Howe who made my logo. It's really, really rad, and she really took into account like all the things I was saying. There's elements like the Fibonacci sequence, that spiral that's in like a conch shell, but it's also in like a hurricane. It's also in like the galaxies. It's also like, it's so cool. Like this same, like a pattern of like the exponential growth and stuff like that, that spiral exists like everywhere. It's very, very cool. So it's a pattern in nature. There's patterns in nature. There's patterns in people. Okay. So that's going to be a big part of Patterdox. That's the idea. But I'm really excited for this. And I wrestle with the idea of homeschooling sometimes, about socialization and things like that. But people are pulling their kids out of school. And I looked at the Washington Post last year, had this like graph, and it showed how many kids are going into homeschooling. I was like, what are they going to be learning? What are they going to be learning? That's like a minefield. It's like a diamond mine, not a minefield. It's like a gold mine. I mean, because there's all these kids that want to learn, that don't like what's happening in school. All these parents who don't like what's happening in school want their kid to be a critical thinker, not be punished for being curious, not be labeled as dumb or something because they have like these, different learning disabilities or whatever it is. They're not getting help or anything like that. And I have access to these kids now. I have a civics class that I'm wrapping up this year. I have 34 students in the class. It's pretty big for like a private school. And in like October, November, one girl wanted to leave her history class that she was in and come over to my civics class. And they were like, that's you have the biggest class in the school. A lot of kids want to take my class. You have the biggest class in the school. This girl wants to be in it. Do you want a 35th? Yeah. Yeah, I want a 35th. I want as many as possible. I see the value in what I'm doing, and I want as many people as possible to hear it and learn from it and challenge me. Like I want access to this. Like, the best teachers should have the most students. And that's what I'm trying to build with Patterdox. And I'm really excited about it. I wrestle with the idea of homeschool, because of like my kids go to a school and say like you won't be socialized. But like my 9-year-old was getting made fun of because he had like cheap shoes, like they weren't like Nike Jordans or anything like that. His feet grow so fast. I'm not buying Jordans. Are you crazy? So he had like cheap shoes, and he liked them. And my kid's cool, and he like owns it and all that kind of stuff. He's like, whatever. And one of the kids who has like Jordans all the time, he's like, those are cheap. Those are Skechers. He's like, they're Skechers. They're such cheap shoes. My son was like, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, they're not Skechers, but like, whatever. Like, who cares? And it kind of like took him down a little bit, but he's just like, doesn't understand. I was like, is that the socialization that we want in schools? Like someone who makes fun of you for shoes? Someone who does that on the street. If I'm wearing like cheap shoes on the street, someone walks up like, oh, you have cheap shoes. What a loser. All right. Like who, like, so like there, you get that kind of socialization, like the negative stuff, like you have a pimple or whatever it is, like that kind of stuff. But you don't get like the adult kind of socialization. Or is there an adult version of that? Like, oh, you drive a Corolla, I have a Bentley or something like that. Like is there a benefit to getting inoculated from like a-holes in public school? I don't know. My kids are in regular school now, but we're probably going to homeschool them. I want them to be out in the world. I want them to do things and develop skills. Nothing wrong with like learning what a covalent bond is or something like that. But, how often is the stuff that's taught in like later middle school and high school really applicable to their life? And I don't think much. And my platform is for late middle school and high school. It's for teenagers. And Everything in it is applicable to teenagers. It's not just here's information that someday you might be able to apply sometime if you're at a dinner party or you're on Jeopardy. No, it's directly applicable to you as a 15, 16-year-old today and to help you be a successful 35-year-old in the future. Um, uh, it's very important to me that the question of why are we learning this? How will this benefit me is answered constantly. Constantly. That's the way I learn. I don't learn anything. I don't listen to a podcast of anything I don't want to listen to. We don't watch a YouTube, we don't go on a YouTube rabbit hole of anything we're not curious about. Yet kids, we don't read books that we don't want to read. Yet kids are forced to do all this stuff. And I don't think that's good. And I think it's when they're young, like learn how to read. But then when it comes time to like choosing books, I want to choose my kids' books, you know? Um, I'm really excited for you as my audience. If you know homeschool people, if you're homeschooling your kids, teenagers, I'm not doing little kids. I'm credentialed in California to teach, K through 6, but not my thing. I don't want to tell kids not to eat paste. I want them to become like critical thinkers. But if you are interested in homeschooling, if you do homeschool your kids, if you have friends that do, or honestly, a lot of what Patterdox does is also it's supplemental. You might take a history class and you don't remember anything. This is the application. Is if you take my courses, civics, sociology, and history is where it's starting out, and then I'm got to show proof of concept, and hopefully I can scale to all different areas and make it something really formidable. But even if your kid is in school, just doesn't like school, doesn't like history class, doesn't like social science or something like that, or you just want them to learn something extra, it's for you too. It's just I'm taking my classroom and I'm putting it online in a formalized way, and I'm committing to this because I love it. I love teaching, and I want to do it for as many people as possible. And I want to be, part of what Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see in the world. So if you want to learn more, check out patterdox.com, patterdox.com. And there's all kinds of things. You can check it out. You can ask questions. You can email me. But it's open. I mean, we're open. We're doing like a soft launch, like open enrollment, because again, I want to get to know these families and everything like that. I want to get to know with, what are your education needs and wants, and let's see if I can help you with it. It's a subscription model. So it's like an ongoing thing. It's not just like buy one class, because I want there to be that constant support. I don't want to just be like, here, give me my money, take this thing, move on with my day. I want to teach. I'm the type of teacher that's like, oh, it's summer vacation. All the teachers are like, yay, summer vacation. Countdown to summer vacation where I don't have to do this anymore. I'm like, countdown? I don't get to do what I love to do, my chosen profession anymore. That's not cool. I like summer. It's nice. But no, I want to teach. So it's a subscription model so that you get me and you get my team that I'm growing now on Patterdox all the time. And it's not just like buy this, move on, give my money, go out. I'm not in this just to like make a bag and then just right off in the sunset. I'm doing this to have an impact on education. And yeah, if I can make money doing this, if I can replace my salary and then some, then great teachers out there go, maybe that's possible. Maybe I don't have to stay in this system where I am excelling. I am phenomenal at my job, connected with all these students, and I'm still making the same as a teacher who just, plays movies and gives worksheets off the internet. Like I'm trying to blaze a pathway for great teachers to make a good salary. Shouldn't great teachers make a great salary? So subscription model, and there's going to be tons of support. There's going to be Facebook groups. There's going to be, all kinds of stuff. So I want to really build a community around critical thinking and everything like that. And I'm excited to do it. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to explain this. I'm going to be back next week, or next maybe week and a half, because we're launching this, so it's a lot of editing and stuff. But week and a half with more episodes. I have episode with Jason Bassler, who runs the Free Thought Project, coming on the podcast. I have Daniel Buck, who has a significant Twitter following or X following in like teacher world. I have a lot of cool guests coming up that I'm going to bring on here to still talk about controversial issues. It's not just going to be about education, but I am going to talk about education, at least right now, because I think that that's really pertinent to what's going on. So check out patterdox.com. Thank you guys for listening to the podcast. I'll get back to all these, wild different topics and stuff. And, you be listening to this podcast has really been amazing for me to sharpen my understanding of complex ideas, because we've covered everything on this podcast. If you haven't listened to past episodes, go through. We've covered it all, everything from immigration, abortion, transgender issues, like race, like everything. We covered it all, and I've learned a lot, and I hope you did too. So thank you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next episode.